Hello everyone, I want to talk through my critical review of this particular paper, Too Complex for Me. Why do performance approach and performance avoidance goals predict exam performance? As you can see, this is a paper that's almost 10 years old from the European Journal of Psychology of Education, and it is a background paper of what I will be doing my action research project on. So just to give you an overview of the paper itself, the researchers contrasted the educational framework of mastery versus performance orientation goals for students. And mastery goals were those that were associated with wanting to learn the material and more of an intrinsic motivation. Performance orientation goals are those that are more extrinsically motivated, but they have been recently subdivided into two different groups. Performance approach goals, which are those where students just want to do well on the test, versus performance avoidance goals, which is demonstrated when students are just seeking to not do the most poorly on a task. So in this study, they had fourth year psychology students in a particular course that took their quantitative survey, which consisted of 6 items, and also utilized their scores on their oral examination and did a regression analysis to see what was predictive or a mediating factor in their performance on these exams. Overall, what they found was that performance orientation had a significant effect on exam performance. Performance approach goals had a significant positive impact on exam performance, and performance avoidance goals had a significant and negative impact on exam performance. But they also found that in all cases that perceived difficulty, as reported by the students, was found to be a mediating factor in their performance. So I want to break down the paper step by step or portion by portion of what I found to be strengths or weaknesses. So to begin with the introduction, I felt like overall the introduction addressed the most important concepts relevant to the topics of the paper. They provided adequate background information. One criticism for this section, though, they did mention additional frameworks like surface and deep learning, for instance, but they didn't define anything about those frameworks. They didn't even cite, really, the literature that spoke of those frameworks. So I felt like to strengthen their introduction, those references should have either been omitted completely or they should have been further developed. Moving to the methods, and this was certainly an area that had a lot of issues in my mind. First of all, they had a class of 69 students that they gave this survey and then obviously measured them by oral examination. But for various reasons, only 49 of those students in the class were participating in the survey. So they started with a small n for a quantitative project. More concerning to me was the fact that their survey that they gave only had 6 items on it, and they were measuring 6 different things. For instance, they were measuring performance avoidance, performance approach, perceived difficulty, previous educational performance, how difficult they believed the class was overall, and then how difficult they perceived the class was specifically for them. So each survey item measured a different construct. So even though 3 of their 6 questions were taken from a validated instrument, they only used 1 item to measure each construct, and then didn't give any kind of information about how they assessed the validity of their new instrument as a whole. So because of those issues, clearly I have issues with how their results are presented as well as their discussion. First of all, they did do a regression analysis to build a model to understand what factor within performance avoidance or performance approach goals were important in understanding why they could predict exam performance. However, if you look at their survey, they had ordinal data. On no one of their items where they collected data did they have a continuous variable. Most of the items were measured on a 1 to 7 Likert type scale. A couple of other items were scaled on a score of 0 to 10. But they don't discuss how they handled this, what I would consider ordinal data, within the regression analysis in their model. And all of the issues that I mentioned previously about their methods with the survey and the number of participants certainly impact my view of their results. So, as they moved into the discussion, they made what I believe were unwarranted declarations about the application of their results. For instance, they do declare during the discussion that their findings say that we now understand that perceived difficulty is why students who are either performance avoidance or performance approach make the grades that they do on exams, whether they do well or whether they do poorly. They do have a brief section where they mention the limitations, but they kind of gloss over the limitations and continue to assert not just that there was a correlation between performance avoidance or performance approach goals and exam score when taking into account perceived difficulty, but that perceived difficulty and performance goals orientation will predict and do predict a student's performance on an exam. In my critical review, there are a few other smaller issues that I bring up, so I've posted it here so you can see that. But overall, I think that the results of this paper need to be taken. They can be helpful, certainly, but not to be taken with the same certainty that the authors seem to have written it. And so I will look forward to reading others' critical reviews and seeing what you found. Thanks so much for watching.